Hello and welcome. This is Bibi Tinsley, and I'm recording this on March 20th, 2020 in Tucson, Arizona. I'm so delighted and so honored to present, finally, the fourth conversation of the Cauldron is on the table. We recorded this over a month ago, and oh my, I have been quite delayed, to say the least, in getting this to you. Distractions in my live stream abound, not the least of which is the current state of affairs in the world called the coronavirus. So much is happening. Whether you call it a psyop or a pandemic, I will say that many, many, many mysteries are showing up and unfolding right now. I recognize these times as the Great Shift. Back in my university days, the time we're now in was being prophesied as the Age of Aquarius. And from my perspective, the Great Mother, our Earth, has sent us her wake-up call. So many people are being shocked for their very first time in different ways. For instance, into the recognition of our undeniable physical connection with one another. Because of what's going on, the great big uglies on all sides are being revealed, but these things inevitably will have to see the light because this is part of a grander, more cosmic process of evolving our human community. From what I've known and experienced in close to 7 decades of taking breaths in this body, I see a highly intelligent and vast force guiding and supporting all of this. Maybe it's actually us. I could easily go on, but this isn't the right time for me to steer the boat down that wild riverway. Instead, let me go back to the real reason I'm speaking right now. It's because I have the absolute honor and joy of presenting the 2 other women of the Cauldron, JJ and Niish. Seers both. They are from my soul family, and they are my true sisters of the mystery. JJ is a superb artist. She is a metalsmith, a jeweler of extraordinary mystical vision, and she's an accomplished visual artist as well. Niish is a musician, a wildly innovative video artist, and poetess siren wielder of the spoken word. Her witchy and visionary knowledge is sought after by numerous program and talk show hosts. She herself co-hosts the Nox Menti podcast. It's unique in that it focuses entirely on dreams, and a newer interview show equally as brilliant called The Obelisk. Please go ahead, click on their links that are in the show notes and go exploring. I promise it will be well worth your time. And now, conversation 4 of The Cauldron is on the table. All right, Niish, take us down to the table.
Okay, we are officially recording, and it feels just so delicious to be back with Niish and JJ finally. It's been a couple of months, and so much is going down. I'm going to start just by checking in. I had this massive move. There was a battle. I'll tell the story a little later on, but I'm experiencing deep, uncanny, amazing, marvelous synchronicities. I'm in a safe space. It's very beautiful here. And with that, I want to turn it over. Ladies, go for it. And welcome.
Thank you.
JJ, you can start. Lol. We're so polite. I'm like, JJ should go. I'll let you come in and say, I'm just going to say, I love you both. I've missed this round table of ours, our little circle. And so with that, I'll let JJ sound in.
I love you both too. And I've missed you both. And I don't, what did we do? December? I can't remember now. It's been a little while.
So. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. Well, yeah. I am happy to be in my little safe haven, and geez, wow. There's just been so much in the last few months. I mean, I feel like every time we get on, we talk about how much has happened.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's exactly the sign of how this is all. It's not like an ordinary times where you got to really pick apart one thing. This is how fast everything's happening.
Yeah, it's definitely not. We're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. So, gosh, I don't remember. I mean, for December, for me, it seemed like it was going to be. I don't even know how to. It was. I started out taking the last ferry boat from Provincetown to Boston, and was all happy-go-lucky, and developed hives from something, and had a complete allergic reaction. It was like anaphylactic shock, and that's how I just started out my December. And just
Wow.
was completely physically attacked by something. I still don't have any idea what. And it just seemed to go on from there, physically, and yeah, had some extreme nighttime happenings that I probably won't get into too much, but they were disturbing, like disturbing dreams and people coming to visit me. And then I developed a severe virus that went on for weeks, all the way through the end of December and into January, where I had, like, I believe probably it was some kind of flu, and probably a pneumonia or whatever. I really don't know. I was on all kinds of natural whatevers because I wasn't going to take antibiotics. And
Which don't work for viruses anyway.
no, they
Viruses run
don't.
their course.
They don't, and that's why I wasn't going to do that. I knew it was viral, and I was very, very ill, very, very ill, coughing, and
My
like
God.
I had a bronchitis of sorts, and I don't know
Another big
what.
wow. Another big
Yeah.
wow. Wow.
I was really, really out of commission, like just really being attacked through the entire month of December. I'm not trying to start out doom and gloom, but it was, I don't know. I kind of lost big chunks of December for myself. But, I still tried to get some work done and do some jewelry, and got some headway on that despite those things. And
I just want to jump in and say I saw you
sure.
briefly on video, and you're glowing with vitality today. And I was so caught up in this monster move, I really was out of touch with you guys. And JJ, I'm sorry, I had no idea. And next time, hit me up because I can send you some love and some healing rays. I can do that.
I appreciate that. I wasn't really talking about it too much.
Yeah, I understand. I do.
Wasn't wanting to give it the energy, and I really
Mhm.
actually didn't have the energy.
Wow.
I was just trying to stay afloat and just get through it, and I did eventually. I kicked it, and just kept doing my thing as much as I could, and I was, doing some drawing that I hadn't been doing in a while. I posted some
Interesting.
sketches and started drawing some trees. Was having a lot of dreams. So, I always have a lot of dreams, but having some really significant dreams about nature and rocks and crystals and stones, which I hardly ever dream about, believe it or not.
Lovely.
believe it or not, this lady who works with all the rocks and crystals never dreams about them. And I was having quite a few dreams
I
about
love it.
really specific stones that I don't normally work with. So,
Which stones, JJ?
I had some dreams about sunstone and I had written them down here. I had green jade, sunstone, what was the other one? Rainbow, or wasn't rainbow, it was just moonstone, but there was some rainbow moonstone. There was another black crystal that was not, it wasn't smoky quartz. It was something I had never seen before that I just found this past week randomly. And it's called, I still can't pronounce it.
Ooh, what is its properties?
What is it?
What are its properties?
Oh, perseverance and endurance. And it looks extremely like black tourmaline, but it is not black tourmaline.
Ooh,
Where
girl,
is it?
Share us
from?
photos, please.
Yeah, really.
I will. I actually had it up. Let me bring them back up.
And I'll put them in, I'll link everything up too. Do you remember where it's found, where it's mined?
It was originally found, sorry, I had this up here. It's
because this information is important to us. It really, truly is. This came out of one of your dreams.
It's ilvaite, and it's for perseverance, patience, and grounding. It looks almost identical to black tourmaline, but it's much harder, and it actually has a sort of color change property. And it was originally found on the island of Elba.
Oh,
wow.
Oh, wow, right.
The Mediterranean Sea.
Of course.
Yeah, so it's got, and it's I had to do some research on it because I didn't know about it at all. It's a monoclinic crystal, prismatic. It's also been found in Norway, Sweden, Finland, and the Aegean Islands, and Russia and Mongolia.
Yeah, that's all ringing for me. Yeah, it's got to have some that, and of course in the world of people I know that are dreamers, JJ is one of the very few that's really dreams true and has just an unbelievable hit rate. It's just amazing. So this kind of stuff is really super significant. And I think why is because so much of what you bring forth from that state of being, that presence, is relevant to the outer world and those of us that are also out here in the sandbox that we're all playing. So that's why I give it more significance.
A possibility strikes me, and JJ, this will either ring true or not, but the physical challenges that you went through, which sound very intense, considerable. You said that you rarely have dreamed about the medium, the crystals that you work with, and here you are now. Question: did these dreams come after the physical symptoms subsided or during?
I was actually, before we got on here, I was looking through my notes of my dreams, and they mostly came afterwards, shortly after.
Okay.
There was a period of time where I did have some dreams about blue kyanite and magnetite and pyrite beforehand.
it feels like a channel you have, a direct channel to the, this element, the particular elemental world. And with the intensity of the conjunction from December, January, Pluto, and also being in Capricorn.
Everything is in Capricorn.
Yes, it's so amazing. It's so intense, but it just feels to me that, and it sounds so trite, but things end up sounding trite oftentimes because they're true, that your channel is being opened up. And part of that was being plumed by Pluto, and Pluto dredges everything so that it has to come up and out. And this channel is becoming more clear. It's being polished and shined up,
Yeah, that very well could be true. I am, even during the time, I mean, I was having, like, at the time where I was extremely ill, I was actually getting better close to Christmas, and then caught a second round of something and was just, unfortunately, tossing my cookies on Christmas.
Oh, honey,
And
not fun.
I was dreaming that night about crossing people over a river and being in a boat and trying to decide if I actually just wanted to stay on the other side.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really intense stuff. And yeah, I feel like I've really been I don't know what. Yeah, I mean, no, you're probably right. And
the river Styx is intense, JJ.
Yeah. And I had another dream where I was in this big sort of mansion. It was sort of like an old department store, like really old high-end department store mansion type place. And they took me to a certain floor, and it was all green marble, and it was all mahogany wood, and went to this sort of silk trading type area with a tent, and they had silks, and they opened this sort of big chest for me, and it had all Egyptian rings in it, and they were all like horned gods, like the rings were all, I'm like trying on all of these ancient rings. I mean, there's just been some really interesting things going on. So, but the stone thing is very significant to me, because really, like I said, I have not been dreaming about stones, and then to be dreaming about specific things that I normally don't work with or encounter or even know about, that's something else for me.
It's your language. You're coming into one of your languages. I'm resonating with the dream of the department store, the setting with the green marble and the mahogany and the exotic silk trading area. I love that. It feels so familiar to me.
Ooh, me too, of course.
Darling. Yes. We're probably all there on different floors,
Fantastic, bizarre.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like.
But you're feeling better now.
I am mostly. I'm still having my moments of low energy and whatever, but I'm much better than I was.
That's great. That's really great.
Thank you.
Niish, what's been going on, darling?
Well, I mean, the usual, of course, shows and connecting with people, and a lot of fantastic stuff. A lot of that fantastic stuff's happening, of course, and but on the personal download side and the stuff that is moving through me and coming to me, and then I'm pushing forward, is what I've been talking about for some time. And of course, we're smack dab in the period of time I've been talking about for a few years now. So, and my videos, which are transmissions, all of them, and I can't put that out clear enough for people that it's not like with the latest one, House of the Holy Blood. So it's not, I'm channeling people. I'm presenting information that's come to me through different channels, and I'm not channeling in a new age way. I'm getting direct information from real world people via high tech. I guess I'll leave it at that. It's very specific, and it's tangible. And then of course there's the etheric and the art and all that I'm a channel to as well. But there's a this realm, this domain groundedness to information I get from certain sources. And so, like, for example, the latest video I put out on Lupercalia, which was specific, and I released it during Jupiter's hour. I would have released it on a significant number, but they only allow 15-minute chunks, so I can't get more specific than I did, which was at 11 a.m. my time. But the House of the Holy Blood is wrapping up a phase that we are in, and presenting the new phase that we're actually in. Also, we're in the liminal state between them. And so it's kind of wrapping up the story that starts with the invasion video and moves on through. And then there's subtext here that if you're paying attention, you'll notice when I'm wearing that 18th century wig that I made. The one that is oftentimes my profile pic here as well.
Yeah.
She is a specific voice, and when you see the wig, it's a cue that that's the subtext. When you see her in the videos, there's a subtext going on, and that's another layer for people that are able to pick through and find these Easter eggs, because I am not able to give this stuff out more clearly than I do.
Nor should you.
Yeah.
Have to. Yes.
So people that just like the beats and boogieing down, that's awesome. I like the beats too. People that just like the gothy aspect and are into it, that's fantastic too. I love it. And that's what I like about this medium. I'm able to be as creative as I want and present information the way I want. And so it's all my expression, but there's information in there. And then there is deeper stuff. And so for the people wailing through the deeper stuff, there are many layers. So that wig is one, and there's a story there. And of course, all the titles and all that are part of the story. And so we're in this phase 2 of what, and I'm using phase in it's very particular, and there's a reason why I'm using the word phase. And so I'm, I'll leave that for people that understand these things at a deeper level. And it's like any real information in the occulted world. You find what you need when you need it, where you need it. You can read the book. It's like Jung, reading Jung. You can read one of his books, like Personality Types or Psychology and Alchemy or Aeon, and get what you need out of it then. And then a few years later, you can read it again and question if you'd actually read it, because you've got so much more. And so it's complex like that. But this phase is everyone's if you're not, you're in place now, wherever you are, there's a sealed window of opportunity that is closing, and it's too late to make big moves. It's just too late. And so synchronicity has played out for a lot of people, and those that were able to run with the synchronicity, listen to the synchronicity, and go with the flow and keep their knees weak, as I've been saying, have found themselves in very good places, like both of you. And I'm so thankful, because you're my sisters and I love you, and you both listen to synchronicities and are so astute and aware. So that pleases me. There's a lot of soothsaying, naysaying, belittlement going on currently, and it's coming. I'm not surprised from whom I see in these general overlapping communities. It's the same old prove it up kind of people. Well, the joke's gonna be on them. It's just a sad truth. And I mean, it's like saying, in the end, like, Bitcoin is insignificant. Really, the whole world is moving towards crypto. That's been a plan. It started with your credit cards, people. And so, I mean, that's what I was trying. I just want to, I'm using it as an example because every time some of the crypto market fails, all the anti-crypto people come, see, we told you. Well, you're going towards cashless. I don't care what you think and how kooky it sounds. One way or another, you're getting there. And it doesn't matter what the platform is, it's what's happening. And so here we are. And the best advice I have, I really want to present more information, but I just want to put this out. I feel the need to put this out. And I have on our last chat, and I continue to. I personally never come from a state of fear, so I don't get amped up. And remember, this is a very important aspect of dealing with the natural world. And I think we need to all ground it down into the natural world, the stuff that we can see and experience, and then you can extrapolate from there and move out from there. However, in the natural world, if you panic, you're the first to go. If you stop breathing, you're the first to die. These kinds of things. If you see a rattlesnake in the woods, it's shaking its tail to warn you and to back away and give it its space and not freak out and not be erratic and all that, which is going to make it lunge at you and bite you. So it's the goddesses, it's the triple goddesses. Hecate's rattle is rattling.
I love that. Mm-hmm.
And people need to remember that the crone's phase of Hecate, the crone phase of the triple goddess. And if you want to put the Trinity on through other religious overlays, that's fine. But the crone phase, the crone aspect, is very significant because it's the crone in which the mother and maiden circumambulate. She is the one that is spinning. She cuts the cord, but she is also the one that's spinning the coin from mother to maiden, It's always in the crone's hand. Mm-hmm. And so she's the one that cuts the cord of life, of consciousness, the umbilical cord, and the mother and the maiden are in the perpetual cycle. The crone is the all, the void, the ether. And it's an important aspect to remember with that modality. And, we could go for hours on the esoterica of all that, but here we are. So my message is find your breath, breathe through, and remember that there's this Stockholm syndrome everywhere around me, everywhere, unbelievable. And is it not wise to err on the side of caution, no matter what the circumstance is? It is wise sometimes to just slow down, look around, assess the situation, and take some precautions. That does no harm to you, no harm to anyone else. It creates a greater calm. And if nothing else, it brings you into the now and gets you lucid as a dreamer within the dream. And that's where we need to be seated right now. We need to find our agency as individuals dreaming in this greater dream. So that said, ooh, we. And so I'm going to just leave that bit here and we can move on. I can chime in later, but I feel like that's what I want to say. I feel like if I move into the deep woo right now, it's going to just trigger more of that Stockholm syndrome. And I want my message to be about finding breath and agency and looking to natural world examples. And not, you don't have to look outside of the natural world to see everything that is. And the natural world is what? The void of the reflection of the self that's perpetually spinning.
That's beautifully put. Beautifully put. I just want to put a little addendum in that for the listeners who are really drawn to what Niish was speaking about earlier regarding her creations, I'm going to put together a playlist. And Niish, I'll touch base with you on this, but in terms of gleaning information, I think it's very, very important. So that will be available by the time this recording goes public. And I'm just so resonating with the triple goddess. This is so old. This is such a primal human imaging experience, concept, metaphor, archetype. And I have myself found this playing out obviously in The Cauldron is on the Table with the three of us, three women, each very, very distinct individuals, but there's something about the flow of us when we come together. I really feel it circulating through my being, and my being is now really big, flowing through the air around here, through the earth, and the electrical currents and the magnetic currents. It's really delicious. It's so old. It's shamanic. And the phase that you were speaking of, without having to go into meanings, what is moving in me is the idea that all of the human cultures originally shared this, I guess, the word that comes to mind is matriarchal, but it's so loaded. There was a recognition, from what we can tell, a recognition of the supreme creatrix, which is feminine. We're not talking about gender, we're talking about the energetics of it. And the tri-quality, the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And oh God, I'm going to go back and listen to how you described the weaver and the crone, her function as the spinner. I love that. I've been being spun, and I was telling Niish and JJ earlier, I've for those who follow my stuff, I haven't been around for 2 months because I've been involved in moving from Los Angeles to Tucson. And I'll tell the story briefly because it's a long story. I don't want to make it long. What happened is our landlord of 7 years told us on December 2nd that he could no longer afford to maintain the house and that he had to sell it, and we had to be out by February 1st. Now, it was shocking, but it wasn't unwelcome. It was that kind of nudge that you get, the kick in the pants. Well, we thought we were going to be doing this down the line, but I guess it's now. Tom and I had been speaking for over a year of moving, and we were zeroing in on the Southwest, and it was just very clear as a bell that day when we got the news that we had to move. It's Tucson, we said to each other over the table outside. And I came to Tucson the third weekend in December and found a wonderful home, a house in the foothills. And I started out here. I grew up in Tucson. I mean, I grew up in Chicago, but I flew away when I was in my late teens, and my grounding years, my coming of age years were here. It's been so long. I mean, it's been 50 years. My God, it's been 50 years. And I remember driving alone. It was night. The sun had just gone down, and I pulled up on top of a hill, and there was Tucson below. Twilight had just gone. It was true night, and this ball of plasma came sailing over the car. It was green, flaming plasma, and it was about 10 feet away from my car. There were witnesses, although I didn't know them. There were other drivers on the road. It was really something, and I remember becoming very emotional. It was like a homecoming from the green plasma. Go figure. And we, moving is a big deal. Packing and all of that stuff, and changing all of the contact info, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a bitch. So we're getting ready to move 4 days before, well, no, it was more like a week before we were supposed to move. I got word from the lawyer of the owner that the house had sold. Now, I knew that the house was on the market, but we signed the lease in late December, knowing that we'd be safe and it would give us time here to see where we wanted to, permanently land. And this was a beautiful, beautiful place to do it. But here we get this notice. The house was sold, and the new owner had no intention of honoring the lease. So there was a lot of craziness that ensued, involving more than 3 lawyers and paralegals and emails and phone calls that were flying back and forth. Long story short, I thought that we had to find another place. I went again, and the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show takes place in Tucson every year. For the last, I think it started in the 50s, but people from all over the world come here, and there was nothing available. This was the only place we could move. Well, I reached out to the potential new owner. She hadn't closed yet. And I have her permission to let you know that her name is Carolyn. We've connected like sisters. She is a gem dealer. She imports crystals and beads and pearls and precious gems, and has been a booth holder at the gem show as well. Well, let me backtrack to the first time I saw the house. I had an appointment with our listing agent. The listing agent for the house, and we were supposed to meet at a certain time, and he said, be on the lookout for a white Camry. And I pulled up to the top of the hill where the house is and was admiring it, and saw a white Camry coming up. My dogs are in the background, very happy as I'm telling my story. And simultaneously, there was a text message from the agent. I'm sorry, he said, I have a family emergency. Can we reschedule same time for tomorrow? Of course. And then the car pulled alongside me, and there was this bright, lovely young woman who said, are you here to see the house? And I said, I am. And we hit it off like gangbusters. She said she was an agent, and she ended up showing me the house. Well, fast forward to last week. It turns out that she was the listing agent who did the transaction for Carolyn. Neither of us knew any of this until last week. So here we have the three women flowing around this house, and the land is amazing. I've been walking it and working with these amazing beings, and I'm in love with a saguaro in front of the house. I call him Old Elder. He's probably an adolescent as far as saguaros go, but he's much older than any of us at this point in time. And I know I've walked this land many times before. Carolyn feels the same way. We don't know what this mystery is, but you know, we don't need to know what the mystery is. The fact that we know the mystery is, period, is very significant. To be aware, to recognize these, they're not even signs. They are, it's a language. It's a language from elsewhere that speaks and it connects us through the heart. And I feel, yes, what Niish was saying earlier about these phases, we were moved to this place. We were, Carol and I have been speaking about how the house has drawn us together. And I feel bad in one way because she did not know there were some shenanigans that were playing out. I don't know what happened. She did not know there had been a signed lease on the house. And, you know, it is what it is. But it's brought us together as sisters. We haven't met yet. She's coming over next week. I really, really do look forward to meeting her. And I'm going to work with her son's girlfriend, who I don't feel that I should say her name. I don't think I have, because I haven't asked her permission. But we don't want to go through this again, so we are going to look for a place to buy. That's all beside the point. We are living in this dream. And it's amazing.
One of the big details here that you left out is we had finished recording the last round table.
Right. Yeah.
And right after,
oh my God.
it was right at the end of it where you got this call from nowhere from your ex-landlord with this really Uranian lightning bolt that Uranus and Taurus that you have now all of a sudden you have to move, and you had been settled into your place. You talked about wanting to move, but you were in love with the ley lines and all this stuff. And this lightning bolt came out of the blue.
I completely forgot. I'm so glad you brought that up. It's true. It happened directly after we ended the recording. It's all connected. Wow, wow, wow. Yeah.
It's major. It's a major synchronicity. And that's part of what I'm saying here too, is that these, for people that rode these out, clearly you did, Bibi, and clearly JJ did, you've been seated and you've been well seated because you rode the wave instead of being taken over by it, which was one of the messages from our last round table.
That's right. Right on.
You stayed the course. You're like, I'm not. You wanted to. You know, it was tough. And you're like, maybe I should. And you're like, no, I'm going to do this. And here you are.
Yeah.
It blows me away. It amazes me. JJ's came up the same, really highly synchronistic like this as well. And it's just, if you cannot, for people that don't understand the power of how this energy works and flows, I question them in ways where I want to put my eye in their world and see how smoothly it's going, because this stuff, if we allow ourselves the eyes to see and the ears to hear, you know, that whole thing.
Yeah.
And get into it and keep the knees weak and ride with it instead of resisting. And then greater lessons that you've both brought forward with boundaries. Bibi, you fought to stay, you were seated there, but you had to fight for it.
Mm-hmm. This is true.
You had to fight for it. And JJ, same thing. So this is very big information, and it's very big information in play, at play, that is tangible.
I think that if we lose our sense of humor, let me bring it to myself. When I lose my sense of humor, it's very difficult and challenging for me to feel connected with other people. And it's a sense of wonder also, combined with a sense of humor about it all, that really makes the dream, this living dream, pop into vision and experience.
I so agree. It's the theater of the absurd. And that's where you find, that's where the laugh is. You know, like Herman Hesse really nailed that point down in Steppenwolf, and with the magic theater of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, you wake up and you can't get the covers off of you for some reason, you're entangled, and you accidentally spill over the glass that's on the table next to you that spills onto this, and then you trip over that, and then at some point you have to laugh, right?
Right.
You can yell and yell and get mad, and that's going to get you nowhere. It seems like you continue to stumble into a darker terrain. If you all of a sudden just go, this is all absurd, and by that recognition, and by finding the humor in it, that is really, in practice, part of keeping your knees bent. That's writing it. That's like, oh, okay, I'm doing this. It's such a wonderful virtue to have. Some people are very challenged in that department, but once it's like the third eye, the crown chakra opening, once that pops open for someone, it's open, and then you're always able to, you have a different vantage point now because you're functioning up from a different spot. Your consciousness is functioning from a different space, whereas it could have been functioning just in the heart or just in the groin, or, you know, all the different channels we have to work with. But I find that upper tier of the chakras a really wonderful place, and to get out the omniscient area is the juiciest. That's where it's the funniest, and that's where we can really orchestrate major change within our sphere, our personal spheres, which, as we know, affect everyone else.
That in and of itself, that statement is very profound. And when you were just speaking, I love the image of keeping your knees bent. I saw like this Amazon warrioress with a bow, you know.
Oh, isn't that so timely right now too, with the bow? That's Artemis essentially, right? And her dogs. Yeah.
Yes. Just fantastic. I am going through something very interesting because for years and years and years, I really was spending a lot of time in the upper chakras, to the extent where I think I was neglecting the grounding. I was neglecting the full body experience of being the, you know, really celebrating the avatar, neglecting parts of it. And I'm finding this new love for Qigong, which I've been involved with for years. And for years before that, I was doing yoga. But there's this new thing with me involving the, I'm totally blanking on the name, but it's the energy center in Qigong. It's between the pelvis and the navel, where the chi is
Where's
cultivated.
Martian when we need him?
Yes, exactly. I'm going to invite him on.
I love him so much.
So do I. So do a lot of people. And
He's wise.
I cannot for the life of me remember the name of it, but there is something that is let's call it miraculous in the human belly. It's a nexus point of energies where I feel it as I'm working in Qigong. After a really good session, I feel the centering happening in the midpoint of the avatar, where everything is flowing, and I'm really feeling and really working with the upper chakras. But my feet, for instance, can feel the sorry about that. My feet can feel, sorry guys. Kumi, I'm gonna mute for a second. Hold on.
It's it's that umbilical cord area, and it's so significant that that's even a symbol in our world, that we have that information, and that there's so much around the umbilicus that at one point, in mythologies and stuff, that is one of the places where, one time you could, some people were called witches depending on how that was sealed up. There was there's mythologies of those without. Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
back, by the way.
All right.
And so I was just, while you were gone, chiming in about the umbilical cord, that area of, how important that is.
Yes. And getting back to what you were saying about Hecate and her spinning, I can feel the spinning happening in that center point.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. It's like, it's toroidal to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that center point is very important. And this is a good illustration of different perspectives, because a lot of time I find myself, it just depends on the space, but I go right into, I live in the blue heart area a lot. And it's, and that to my detriment often, too much. I've got to move. I've got to get down and ground sometimes, but I am a very grounded person, so I don't need to be there too much. Otherwise, I just can't move. I'm like
Right.
on the couch, in the couch. And so, so girl, I've got to rise that up. But I'm now able to, without fear, get up there into those higher realms. When I first popped all that energy, I rode paranoia, and and we've talked about that. So now I'm able to just be there in those spaces, knowing that I can move freely along these channels. And if I feel paranoia, which to me is just awakening energy, paranoia is a good thing, I think.
I agree with you.
Yeah. But you just have to be in charge of it. Like anything else, you can't let it devour you. You devour it, in a way, if that's a symbol to use. So I don't find myself in any paranoia state. I haven't in a long while. So that's a good thing. That was a hell yes from the dog. Can I get a Hail Mary? Oh, I think Beebs, yeah, she muted us. So I'm just saying, right now, and stuff that we've been talking about, JJ, I'm riding those upper waves, because that's where I need this more omniscient perspective at this time. And because I've done everything I can to ground for
it's a
this.
maturing process, and I'm back. Yes, that was a hell yes.
Yeah, hell yes, Hail Mary,
yeah.
baby.
Yes, exactly. And what you were saying, we are each so individual. All of our, our tendencies are, the word that comes to mind is samskara. Part of me is like, speaks in Sanskrit. I don't know how to translate that. The tracks.
I love it, Bibi.
Yeah. Because I have so much air in my natal chart that I had to ground. I had to, come down, because I was living in those upper realms. Now, that being said, what you were saying about paranoia, let's change that word, shall we? Let's
Thank
call
you.
it discrimination.
Yes. Yeah.
That comes from an experienced viewpoint. And how, lady, you are experienced at this point in time. This is all a maturing process, and I'm talking about the maturing process of the soul and the spirit through time. And JJ, you as well, you bring this out through your creations, which are, again, I want to, let everybody know, and I'm going to provide links and actually do a proper intro to these two amazing goddesses, my dear sisters.
Well, JJ actually brings it out literally through her dreams too, Bibi. They are
This is so true.
Spot on.
Thank you. I've had crazy dreams lately. But go ahead.
Well, now I want to hear. I want to hear more.
Oh, I've had like just the other night I had a dream about a friend from the market I used to do, and haven't been in touch, and I was just suddenly, well, it was a whole thing. It was like it started with me and this girl that I didn't know in a car, and I was just her companion, and she wanted me to go with her to this tunnel of darkness in the car, and I was just there as a support. And it's like, okay, so we're just I'm going with her, and we get there, and there's a bunch of people, and it's this well-known place apparently, and there's all these people. It's almost like a tourist spot, but it's not really something you want to have a tourist spot for. And so we get out of the car. She's like, well, let me see if I can just walk through first. I'm like, okay. So I just wait. And she comes back in about 5 minutes, and she's like, all right, well, let's just drive through. I'm like, okay. So we go. And it's just like one short tunnel first, and in the side of a mountain. And we go through that, and it opens up to an open bridge with an overlook where you're looking out over the side of the mountain. It's way high up, big. I don't even know where we are. And then there's the entrance to this tunnel of darkness. And she's like, all right, let's do this. I'm like, okay. I'm just here for the ride, I'm just accompanying her through this thing. So we go through, and then suddenly, I don't even know what happens, and we're in Washington Square Park in New York, and I'm there with my friend from the market, and he's sitting on a table or the top of a bench or something, and he's kind of distraught, and he's telling me something in his life. And there's no one around, and there's this cat down on the ground. And I'm like, wow, what an unusual, pretty cat. And it's rubbing against me, and I'm petting it. And then some people start to come into the park. It starts to sort of, quote unquote, normalize. And I'm petting this cat, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, wow, it's kind of big for a cat. And it thinks I have a treat, so it starts it gets a little aggressive. It starts swatting at me and trying to get what it thinks I have a treat. I don't have one. It's trying to nip at me. And I'm looking, and it's kind of a rust color, like an orange red, and it's white, and it's got spots and stripes. And I'm like, its nose looks funny. It looks like it's got a snout. I'm like, and where's its tail? It doesn't look like a cat. And I'm like, it looks sort of like a pig or something. And then some woman comes up, and she's like, is this your pig? Or is this your she said, "Is this your cat?" And I said, "Yes." Like, I suddenly decide I have to protect this thing, and I'm petting it, and it's got a collar on, and it's got a tag, but it's got all Asian characters on it. And I can't really read it, but I'm pretending. And the woman's like, "Well, what's its name?" And I'm like, Ginger. And I'm just pretending this thing's my cat, and it starts running off, and I'm like, "No, come back." And I start realizing that this thing is magical, and it's not a cat at all, and it's some sort of pig or something. I don't know what it is. And it's running, and then there's an old man trying to kill it with his cane. He's hunting at it, and everybody's chasing this thing, and it goes down into a sidewalk, metal, one of those. In the city, they have those trapdoor things that go down to the basements. And it goes down there, and it's the old man's apartment down there, and he's chasing. He's like, "I'm gonna kill that thing. I'm gonna get it." I'm like, "No, no, no, it's okay. I'll get it. I'll get it out of there." I'm like trying to chase after it. And I wake up. I'm like, "What the heck was that thing?" And I'm looking up Asian pig-like animals with red and white and spots and whatever. And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, it's a baby tapir or tapir." Like, I found an exact picture of it, and it wasn't a pig, it was a tapir. And I don't know if you guys know what that is.
I do.
They look very different from the adults when they grow up. They're usually they look sort of like rhinoceros or hippos or whatever, and they have they're usually like black and white, but the babies are spotted, sort of like deer are. And I've just been having these weird creature dreams, like these magical animals that are coming to visit me and dashing around. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent, but
oh God, no, I love this JJ question.
Sure.
When did you have this particular dream?
Oh, that one was just probably 4 nights ago.
Wow. I mean, again, we bring our own experience and our own perspectives to the story of your dream. For me, what resonates is the exotic world of nature, the exotic world that we're in, the bigger pieces, the bigger pictures of all that is, that's tangible, that's here. And the dream worlds are very real in my view. We're just usually not privy to them until we become aware, and some people cultivate that, for instance, there's dream yoga, et cetera, and lucid dreaming. But regardless of all of that, for me, these worlds are very, very real. And it also brings up this idea of phases that we're in that you were speaking about earlier, Niish. And I moved to share a dream that I had a year ago, because I feel I wouldn't share it if I didn't feel it was significant to the conversation that we're having. So briefly, I was in an amusement park, and it was just a normal amusement park. People were, milling about, standing in line to go on rides, et cetera, children with cotton candy sticks. I was by myself, and I suddenly saw a man in the distance. He was maybe 100 feet away. It's difficult to put that kind of specificity on spatial relationships in remembering a dream and telling it, but there was some distance. It wasn't great, but it was big enough I can say a distance. He was completely on fire. he was engulfed in flames, and he went running for, it looked like it was a ride. It began as a conveyor belt, and he jumped onto it, but it was going into a tunnel. And there was a woman who was yelling. She was yelling his name. I couldn't quite hear it. And I remember she had long, dark, flowing, waving hair. It was moving around her. And she went to catch him and to pull him back from going through the tunnel, and she burst into flames.
Oh my God.
And then I saw this complete surrender on both of them. There was no agony in terms of feeling a burn or anything of that nature. It was very natural that the two were together, completely engulfed in flame. And I woke up and I contemplated this. And I really think that I was being made privy to the phase of, in alchemy, the phase of blackening. Now, this was a year ago, and we've moved from that phase. I don't know enough about alchemy per se. I haven't studied it extensively, but I know that blackening is an initial phase where things are broken down to their primal elements, the basic elements, so that they can be transmuted and transformed. And just throwing it out there that this was a phase I perceived, as far as I can tell from what came through in that dream, that this was something we were going through collectively about a year ago. And I hear your dream, JJ, and I'm always enthralled when animals come into it. Animals are amazing. And I always get the feeling that whatever is being revealed, shown, experienced is very authentic. There's nothing false. Sometimes, I mean, I've had dreams where there are hidden aspects, and it can be easy to be tricked. But when there's an animal involved, there's nothing untrue. It is what it is. And this magical being, there's a feeling of the exotic quality of our organic world. It's so exotic and rich. And we humans complain about it, and we're afraid of it, and we want to chase it and beat it down. But it's here. And there are some who are just becoming more privy to being part of that and embracing it. So I don't know if any of that made sense, but
No, it does. I mean, that's what it seemed like, that these people, they were like, this thing felt like it had to disguise itself as a cat, and they were just like, there it is, go get it, because it's not a real cat. And I don't know, but that was really intense. Your people would fire there in your dream.
that it was intense. And I had the choice of being disturbed. Oh, there's feedback. When I woke up, and I decided, no, it wasn't disturbing. It was startling, but it wasn't disturbing,
Right.
There's so many ways to come at all of this imagery. And for sure, the blackening is a major stage. But before you even get to that, that's once you're in the vessel, once the prima materia is in the vessel and it's sealed, and the heating, right? The heating's happened. And so if everything goes right, then there's transmutation. But even before that process, there is the gathering of the prima materia to get it in there. So there's quite, it's definitely that's at a certain phase. That's at that second phase. And that's potent imagery for sure. And I of course love the alchemical way of looking at everything. For me, the world really is that set of symbols resonates with me more than I think almost any other set personally. And JJ, Lord have mercy.
That's not even, I could go, I mean, the next night I was at an event and I had big, huge crystals and people were coming like in herds and I couldn't handle them all. And then someone came up behind me with white makeup on their face, mocking a medical mask. It was not
And
a
this
mask.
was just what, a couple weeks ago?
Oh, this was this past week.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not targeting anyone, but it was an Asian person in the dream. It was a woman, and she had face paint on, mocking a mask over her mouth. And she was trying to take over. She was like trying to chime in on me talking to a woman about a specific rock crystal. And she's like getting in my personal space. And I was trying to politely ease her out of the way. And as I was looking at her, she transformed. She had actually green rocks in her mouth.
Whoa.
Crystals in her mouth as she was speaking, over her teeth.
Moldavite comes to mind.
Yeah, it looked something like that. And she grew facial hair under the makeup and turned into what looked like a man. She looked like a goat. And when I looked down, she had hooves on her feet and turned into sort of a pan-like creature.
Well, I think of the primordial trickster here.
Right. Well, and plus Pan is one of the old gods.
Yeah. And she was actually not speaking English, but I could understand her. So that was interesting.
One of the things that I actually haven't said this. I've been around. Of course, you all know I get around.
Yeah.
So I've been speaking about some of this here and there, and one of the things that's very apparent now to me, and it's very clear, I've alluded to it at least, is that all around, what I'm doing when I allude to stuff is I seed it out and then I try to see what comes back without front loading.
Right.
And I find that people are more open to, because I'm not one that's going to say that we all have access to everything. And just like sleeping and dreaming and all that, we all have this. We all have it. And so there's the tech with invisibility has been around a long time, like cloak, fabric. I don't even know. I think we may have talked about it, but I want to put it, and so I'm grounding that again in the world around us. That's out there, and it's been out there a long time. The military's been seeding that out a long time, at least a decade. And because I remember going, ooh, girl, I want a cloak of invisibility. I want 3 yards of that fabric. Yeah. And so, and just recently, it's made the rounds again. And so I'm just laying that out to present this, that around us at all times, and for a very long time, especially since we hit this event horizon, which I recently talked about in Conspiranormal, I think in specific, maybe there, I think, because I don't want to get,
I'm going to put the link up.
Yeah, I don't want to rehash stuff, but that we're constantly surrounded by this technology. So when, amongst other technology, and as anyone who knows, I talk about non-human stuff a lot, which is oftentimes AI based, and all of this is rooted in stuff that's out there. So I can take you to the woo, but most people don't want, really, even woo people, I lose them. And so it's hard, it's hard, it's a translation thing. So, but right now, everywhere, there is invisibility cloak all around us. There are our people using this, and this non-human, and possibly other races that are also, they look like us, they are us basically, but they're not us at the same time.
Right.
So that's happening, and this whole cocooned octopi thing that brought me forward this time is well underway now. And I'm just going to give a hard example here that I had mentioned to JJ earlier today. Yeah, I mean, JJ and I are just like in nonstop conversation, and it's like we're like an IV to each other. And so I was at one of the places I go often. Let's put it this way: often. I don't want to get because the world's closing in a bit. People know where I am and all that, sadly. And so a place I visit often, it's a stopping place, and I'm known because I become known, and I'm, there's a little chit chat while I'm doing what I need to do. It's like a convenience type store. And so I'm well known, and usually I'm the person people want to give their weird stories to anyway. And so, and I want to hear them. So I've developed this particular relationship with a person, and every time I come in, she has she has something, and she also wants to know what I'm doing. And she's not, as far as I know, I've never given her a direct link to anything I do. So not Knox Mente or anything, because it's too close to home.
Right.
So I don't tell her, she doesn't know my name. She doesn't know any of this information. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to have a beard in the outer world for people that don't understand gay culture. Because that's where that came out of, was gay culture. No, I'm not gay, but I love my gays. And I'm able to walk around with a certain level of anonymity with a cover, which is the beard thing for like gay men that don't want to present themselves as gay men. So they usually have a woman. And that's usually in traditional language called the fag hag, which I have been. And so I've loved being a fag hag, I've got to say that. And
we share that, by the way.
Yeah, of course we do. And I think so many fantastic women do. It's a wonderful relationship to have with another person too, when you're that close with your gay men's. And so anyway, I'm able to do this. So I go in this last weekend, and I wanted to ask if she'd seen my friend Montana Jordan's show that was on the Travel Channel, and because she kept asking me about that, and so I could tell her that Montana's stuff, to push Montana's stuff, so that Montana has that, because I wanted that to be really successful for her. And she looks at me straight in the eye and says, "What?" And I said, "Oh, you were asking me when, and what's the name and all this stuff, and I giving you this information is when it's aired. Have you seen it?" And she's like, what are you talking about? Who are you? And she's trying to check me out. And then she just starts babbling about some stuff in the window. And I immediately knew right then what had gone on. So I switched gears right there, because that's what you do.
Right.
You don't address this further. You switch gears and you ride the wave that's there. And I said, "Oh yeah, that looks beautiful. It's very, she's like, "Is it blending in?" And we went into her narrative. And so I played out the narrative and let that glitch happen. And because the first second when I responded with, "Oh, I've told you this before," it was like two other people in the place looked right at me that were trying to, it was like all of a sudden, it was like a real Matrix moment.
Right.
And I thought to myself later, because at that moment, one of my practices that I recommend to everyone is martial arts practice. We need to be using this right now. It's not something about it only, and it's the simpler the better. So, an apple, focusing on the apple, whatever. Is it a red apple? Is it, the color of the stem? Try to get really specific and just keep your mind focused on that, and it puts up a firewall.
Right.
And so that's all I did until I was away and I felt this energetic shift. And of course, side note here, I'm using very important crystals on my body right now that are military grade as well as in their natural specimen form. That is greatly helping. So I just want to put a plug out to blue Siberian, the Blu-ray, Siberian blue quartz, the real stuff. You can find it. It's out there. Just make sure it's the real stuff.
I'm holding it right now.
I'm wearing it right now. It's developed by the Russian government for very specific reasons, and then it turned into a jewelry market, and so you can get it Vogel cut, you can get it in the world, people, and I highly recommend you shell out a couple clams for it. So I go out and I process the information with my companion, and it was one of those things like that's when I knew we were into phase 2. That was one of those I didn't know when it was going to happen, but I knew it was happening. I knew I've been seeing the significators amp up, as we've talked about, but we're in it. The phase 2 is unrolling right now, and so those kinds of things, if you just pay attention, are so obvious and real, and there's no way to know where it's going to. I think just to be wise, just assume that you are your best friend and try to cultivate your own inner relationship with your voice. And remember that there is real technology in this world that's unrolling, that is going to, can co-opt your voice and make you think your voice is not your voice. So understand that. And that all gets back to the breathing and specific things. But this is in action right now. And this invisibility factor is real. This is a go time. And so that's why that was the major thing. At some point I knew I wanted to hopefully present here with us tonight.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's big.
First of all, people who listen to this are getting it. I know you guys do.
And our people are, yeah.
Absolutely. And it is, I just want to go back to what you said earlier, what you offered of, we need to learn our own voice. We need to learn what is ours and what is not ours. It's a very basic thing. And one thing that has helped me in cultivating that is the grounding work that I was talking about earlier, and spending time in nature. And what does that mean in nature? I don't necessarily mean outside. I mean in different forms of nature, even in the crystalline world, if you resonate with crystals.
Absolutely. This is right. Important, Bibi. Keep going. This is so important.
Yeah. It's so easy with all of the layers in this society. It's so incredibly complex. And yes, the Wetiko is what we're talking about, what Paul Levy has put forward. I first heard him speaking about Wetiko years and years ago, I think on Red Ice, when Red Ice was still something that I was listening to. I was taken with the idea of the virus, and also Don Juan and Carlos Castaneda's books. speaks of the God. It's a similar concept, but this has been around, and the people who are closest to the land, um, we would call them the indigenous people, the who have the ancient wisdom flowing and alive within them because it's handed down orally as opposed to written, which is a whole different thing that I won't go into now. They're very aware of this trickster aspect of the so-called virus. It's this thing that wants to I think the most insidious aspect of it is what you were describing, Nish, in that it tricks us into thinking certain thoughts are ours when they're not. So it's important to
Yes.
ground.
Yes.
It's important to remember kindness. It's important to remember that the humans, and not every human that we see that we think is human is human.
Not at all.
That's a whole other avenue that I don't particularly want to go down right now. But just remember that.
But Bibi, many are humans, but they're not like us. So they're not from here.
Exactly. Yes.
But they are humans in essence. They're Homo sapiens sapien, but they're not from here.
Right. Yes, we're on the same page with that. A human is a human is a human, and whether you're from here or from elsewhere, there are aspects of individuality in terms of tribe, in terms of environment, in terms of galactic relationships, but we bring our individual qualities here, and there's a huge trickster aspect out there. So I think that's just really important to remember, and the way around it is to cultivate your relationship with yourself.
Yes, it's the only way out is in. And I know that, again, it's just one of those old sayings that is true and really is true. And so you've just got to go deeper into yourself, and by doing that, you close your eyes and it's the darkness after the retinal burn. You have to get comfortable. It behooves everyone to get comfortable with the blackness, the void, the ether, the Tesla ether, because that's the crone, and that's that big energy, and you've got to become comfortable in it. Otherwise, and then you realize that it's not blackness at all, but it appears that way for a time until you melt into it. And then by knowing yourself, you know yourself within it, and so it's easy to discern yourself from it. This is inner work, and this is alchemical work, and it's very important because we are all participating in this outer world. It's which is also real. None of us here are saying that none of this is not real. It's just the message is get comfortable with yourself. Know yourself.
That was extremely groundbreaking for me, was to meditate in complete darkness and sit in complete darkness for not like long periods, but decent amounts of time, and really try to be comfortable with it, because you have to break through that darkness and see that it's not scary, actually, if you can really sit with it and really become comfortable with yourself. And actually, I found personally, I don't know, I personally have like a sort of, it's almost like a self-hypnosis type thing, where if I'm feeling invaded, I can instantly pull up certain tones or certain songs or whatever in my head, where I can center myself back and just drown out whatever's trying to invade me.
That's so beautiful, JJ. That's a similar tool to what Nish was describing in terms of pick one thing and focus on it. These are tools we can use to maintain ourselves, to keep ourselves intact. And it does involve setting up a safe space and boundaries and knowing what is mine and what is not mine. You know, we're coming on, like, I'm looking at the time. We've had
I
a
already
really,
heard
really
you in my
long...
ear, Bibi.
Yeah, it's getting
Didn't you,
late, I know.
JJ?
Yeah.
You know, these conversations they're deepening, and I feel so blessed. This is going to percolate and resonate within me. I want to just offer what I have received from connecting with Niish and JJ today is this sense of the maturing self. It takes focus, it takes intention, it takes determination, it takes perseverance to stick with it, to not get sidetracked. I mean, we all get sidetracked, but to keep coming back to center. And those of us who keep on practicing this in whatever form or way, you know, our self-practice reveals to us that works for us, these ripple out. These energetics ripple out and affect our world, our fellow creatures, whoever they might be, whatever they might be. And this is so important. So, I mean, there's so much flux and there's so much change, and be good to yourselves and keep centered, keep coming back to center. This is what I get from hearing you guys today.
Well, it's so simple, but it's not. A lot of people cannot get past the chatter in the head or keep, you know, push through the darkness behind the eyes. So again, keep it simple and baby steps always is, you know, baby steps get you there eventually.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And another thing to remember, there is a population here present now that are going to be in denial. They will remain in denial, and they're not going to even see the point of any of this.
Right.
And that's the way it is. That's a given. There are others who really do get it. And I feel everybody. I feel the flow of the desire to really become intact, truly intact people, and all that entails. I feel this sense of desire on the part of the brothers and the sisters to come together and to keep coming back to center. And this is how, in a way, I get this image of, you know, steering the ship, the planet, the whatever it is, wherever we are, coming back to center is what we can do. It's tangible, and we do have an effect. There is a greater effect that we can actualize for others with kindness.
Well, in this opening reality, these realities that are blooming around us, that as the world widens and deepens, are for me exciting, and so that's where my perspective is right now. Yes, there's a lot to navigate through, and all of that, and it can be, you know, it's perspective. It can be scary depending on your stance and what you've, you know, have you worked on yourself. For me, this is extremely exciting times. This is like, okay, you know, I got my ski shoes on, you know, I'm like, let's do this. And, you know, and then I even take that full Venus thing too. Like, how can I adorn myself through this? Right, baby? Beautiful. You know, I've got real charcoal on my eyes.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
So it, you know, it doesn't have to be, the way some people are painting it is unfortunate. This is not a time of doom and gloom for me. This is a time of awakening and coming into a bigger reality, and it is exactly that. So if we need a little coffee, we need a little coffee.
Hear, hear.
And I take cream,
I
okay?
agree.
I'm not ashamed to say that sometimes I like a lot of honey and sometimes even more sugar. So,
Yes, honey.
whoa. I want to say that I'm delighted. I was telling JJ, my phone keeps falling down here. Sorry. I was telling JJ before you came on, Niish, that my back went out last night for the first time in the longest time. I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to sit, but I've forgotten all about it until I thought about it.
I could see, though, when you were on camera earlier, I could see your back was uncomfortable.
Thank you for that. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, but I'm feeling much better now. But I probably should say that I think it's time for us to wrap up, and we will. This is an ongoing conversation.
Of course.
Always.
Yes, I love you both so much. It feels so good for me to reconnect with you.
It's home. It is home. May the circle be open, but never unbroken.
Beautiful.
Love it.
Beautiful. Any last thoughts?
No, thank you. I honor both of you. I love you both. And to people out there, keep on keeping on.
It's one of my favorite things to say. I love it. I love you guys.
Love you too. Soon, my darling, soon.
Yes. Soldier on. Carry on.
Yes. So be intact, stay whole, and I will reconnect with you in about a month.
Indeed.
Can't wait.
Much love.
Big love to you both.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.